How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBuffNerd. If you're a new watcher, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you're a returning watcher, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me stay motivated to get you guys information from the inside. First off, Happy New Year. Hopefully you guys finish 2022 strong and you have great plans when it comes to 2023. Hopefully you are in the midst of hitting a new milestone, getting a degree, getting more proficient, getting a better job, negotiating a better salary. Whatever it is that your heart's desire, I hope that you have plans to do it this year. But anyways, I have an interesting experience that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So as you guys know, I've been a wireless network engineer over the course of the last 6 or 7 months now. I've been dabbling in the realm of wireless for about a year. It's to the point now to where, outside of course, being a wireless engineer, I also have to be a manager of my entire team. And so one cool thing that I did last week was I conducted my first interview. We got some team members that are leaving my team, and they started gearing up to schedule interviews so that we can get more people funneling in. And normally this isn't something that I would pay attention to because I've been just so busy just working on optimizing the wireless environment for my particular job that I just wasn't really thinking about it. But got some emails from my supervisor, and they're like, hey, we got a couple of candidates that are interested in the wireless admin position. Would you be interested in conducting interviews? And I was like, oh, absolutely. And I was just really excited about it. One is because not only can I test their aptitude when it comes to wireless, I can also see how much I know and how far I can dig as far as interviewing these people. So I had 2 interviews last week, but one of the dudes decided to change lanes and withdraw from the interview process. So I only did 1 interview. Actually, before I talk about that, one other cool thing was just figuring out how I was going to do this interview, because like I told you guys, this is my first interview. I've never had to interview anybody before. I've always been on the opposite end of the interview table. I've always been the one answering the questions and showing how good I am when it comes to whatever job it is that I was looking for at the time. So being on the other side of the table was kind of exciting. So long story short, I was like, okay, how do I do this? According to my supervisor, this was his second interview. So I was trying to figure out if whether or not, there was any sort of technical question or any kind of, questions asked pertaining to wireless during the first interview. Was the first interview like, feel them out state, like, or personality, kind of just seeing if, they have the personality that would fit with our team, or, like what exactly happened in that first interview. So that's the first thing I did. First thing I did was I talked to my supervisor to see if that was a thing. And I don't think it was. I think that the very, very, surface level things were covered. They probably asked them like a question like, oh, do you know what the difference is between the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band? Now, for all of you people that are familiar with wireless, that is basically the spectrum that all of wireless signal is sent on. There is the 6 gigahertz band, but that's very new. It's not something that's been, widely adopted yet. So the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz band is where people tend to focus on when it comes to interviewing, when it comes to wireless deployments, etc. So I'm assuming it was like very surface level questions that was asked in that first meeting. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna beef it up a little bit, because usually my second interview is where the technical questions get kind of deep. They get kind of intense. I talked about it in a previous video when I told you guys I interviewed I interviewed for my first network admin job. The second technical interview was intense. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put a little sauce on this one. So I did a little research. I was like, okay, what is considered admin topics and what's considered engineer topics. That's kind of where I was aiming to shoot at when it came to setting up this line of questioning. Just to give you guys an example of the questions that I was going to ask, I was going to ask these things. I was going to ask, what is CAPWAP? What does CAPWAP stand for? And what is it? If you know what it is, describe it. And CAPWAP is basically the protocol that's used when it comes to the access points communicating with the controller. CAPWAP stands for Control and Provisioning Wireless Access Point, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, CAPWAP. Yeah, that should be right. And so, I was going to see if he can elaborate on that a little bit, and then after that, I was like, okay, well, what is Flex Connect? So Flex Connect is basically a different way that the APs communicate with both the controller and the wired network. Normally, an AP is in local mode, and this mode means basically both the control traffic and the client data traffic is sent to the controller prior to going to the wired network. In Flex Connect mode, what happens is only the control data or the control traffic goes to the controller, and the data is sent directly to the switch to get directly onto the wired network. A wireless deployment like this will be useful in the event that the APs, for whatever reason, lost connectivity to the controller. Let's say the controller fails. If the controller fails, the APs will still be able to provide connectivity to the clients that are associated to the APs. I think I said that right. If the controller fails, then the APs can still provide services to the clients. Essentially, in a nutshell, that's what Flex Connect is. So I was going to ask him that. I was also going to ask him a couple of mobility questions. I was going to ask him if he knew the difference between the different types of roaming, like intra-controller roaming, where a client roams to another AP that's connected to the same controller, or inter-controller roaming. And there's a couple of different kinds of inter-controller roaming. There's layer 2 and then there's layer 3. So layer 2 inter-controller roaming is basically where there are two controllers that are on the same subnet, and their AP is connected to or associated with both of those controllers, and the client roams from one AP to the second AP that's associated with wireless LAN controller 2. So that is called a layer 2 inter-controller roam. Layer 3 is the same thing, but those two controllers are on two completely different subnets or VLANs. I would have expected him to be able to, answer these questions based on his experience. And, I could literally dig, we could keep on digging. Those are surface level questions at first, and they can progressively get harder and deeper depending on how much experience you got. So when it came time for the interview, it turns out that this candidate already had wireless experience. He had been in the game for a period of time, for several years, and he had the CCNA wireless back when that was a thing before it was retired. So he knew a lot of the subjects, he knew a lot of the key points when it came to wireless, and this got me excited because I'm like, okay, we could dig a little bit deeper on these interview questions. So I proceeded to ask him these questions, and instead of it feeling like an interview, it just felt like a conversation. It felt like, we were both bouncing off of each other. I'd ask him, so I would ask him a question like, okay, well, name the different types of roams that can happen between controllers. And so he would start talking about these things. He hadn't been in a wireless environment in a while. He had been more focused on networking. So, he was, not necessarily stumbling over things, but he was just trying to remember some of the terms and how certain things happen. And if, like I said, it just felt like a conversation where we're just literally bouncing off of each other. And it wasn't nerve-wracking. I didn't feel weird or anything because he had more years in the field than I did. Since I've been really grinding when it comes to wireless, I was confident on my end. I was just trying to see if I would be able to successfully conduct an interview for the first time. But this candidate knew his stuff. He knew his stuff, and technical interview was not necessarily a breeze, but it was clear and cut. So it was just really interesting, just being able to have a conversation with somebody else that knows wireless as much as I do was just fun. And we're definitely gonna likely consider proceeding forward with that dude. But anyways, the whole point of me talking about this was just to touch bases with you guys and tell you guys that it's interesting once you get to a certain level in your career and you become the person on the opposite side of the interview table. You become the person that knows quite a bit and that has to that has to ask potential candidates list of questions. And so far, this is my first one. Fortunately, it went well. I'm just curious if whether or not I'm gonna have any candidates that are going to be not so proficient or just not so good when it comes to wireless. And I just wonder how they're going to navigate the interviews in those kind of situations. It's moments like this where you not only conduct an interview, but you also kind of learn about yourself. You learn how much of the information you've retained when it comes to the stuff that you've been studying, the certifications you've gotten, and everything along those lines. It'll also give you an opportunity to brush up on things that you may have either forgotten or things that you don't use nearly as often. For instance, Flex Connect is something that I wanted to ask him about because that's a very important AP mode, but it's not something that I typically use in my work environment. So, that's something that I have to brush up on a little bit just to make sure that I remember things. and that I could speak to them during this interview. So long story short, interviewing is fun. Interviewing is fun, and it's very interesting being on the opposite end of that table. If there's any engineers or any architects or anybody that's watching this that had to conduct interviews, how did it feel when you first conducted an interview? Was it fun? Was it interesting? Was it tedious? Was it boring? You know, just let me know how you feel in the comment section below. This is kind of me just sharing an experience with you guys. There's no real lesson that I was trying to teach you guys today. I was just literally just, you know, touching base with you guys and letting you guys know what I've been doing as of recent. Outside of that, you know, what you guys got going on? You know, you guys got some awesome plans for 2023. Do you guys plan on, you know, pivoting and going down a different area of the business? Are you going to double down and dig deeper into whatever it is that you're doing, be it wireless, security, cloud, or whatever the case may be? Also comment that in the section below, just so that we can stay in touch and, you know, you guys can educate me and let me know what's going on. Let me peer into your life, and I can do the same with you. Honestly, that's all I really got for you guys. It's interesting climbing the ladder in the IT industry. I wonder how far this rabbit hole is going to go. I'll keep you guys updated on if whether or not I decide to go for the CCIE. But for the time being, as always, stay safe, stay positive, work hard, rest when you need to, get therapy if you got to, and get the gains. Oh yeah, you hear me out here?